Once upon a time there was a little brown mouse named Whiskers who lived in a cozy hole in the wall of a big old house. Whiskers was always curious about the world outside his little mouse hole. During the day he would sneak out and explore, looking for crumbs and adventures. One sunny morning, Whiskers poked his nose out and sniffed the air. "What a lovely day for an adventure," he said. He scurried out of his hole and into the bright kitchen. The people who lived in the big house were all still asleep. Whiskers climbed up onto the kitchen table. He was looking for a tasty crumb for breakfast when he noticed a giant book lying open. Curious, Whiskers scampered over and looked at the pages. It was a book of maps and pictures from faraway places. "Oh, how I wish I could visit these wonderful places," Whiskers said. Just then, he heard the parents coming down the stairs. Whiskers leapt off the table and squeezed back into his hole just in time. That night, while the people were sleeping, Whiskers snuck out again to look at the book. He stared and stared at a map of a place called Africa. "Africa seems like the most amazing place," Whiskers said. "I want to go on a fantastic journey to Africa. But how could a tiny mouse travel such a great distance?" Whiskers scurried back to his hole feeling sad that he could not explore the faraway place he dreamed of seeing. The very next morning when Whiskers poked his nose out, he smelled something different in the air. It was the smell of oranges and spices and flowers. "How odd," thought Whiskers. He crept into the kitchen and saw that the people had left a large woven basket filled with fruits and gifts on the table. Whiskers realized it must be a gift basket. He scurried up onto the table to take a closer look. The delicious smells were coming from the basket. Just then, Whiskers heard footsteps. Quick as a flash, he jumped into the basket and burrowed down, hiding himself just as the people entered the kitchen. He felt the basket being lifted and carried outside. Whiskers poked his nose out from under a pineapple. He couldn't believe his eyes. The people had placed the gift basket right inside a hot air balloon basket. Before Whiskers could jump out, the hot air balloon started rising into the sky. Up, up went the hot air balloon, carrying the stowaway mouse. Whiskers peered over the edge of the basket at the tiny houses and trees below. He couldn't believe he was flying through the sky on his way to Africa. "Here I come, Africa," Whiskers said. He nibbled on fruit from the gift basket to quell his nervous tummy during the long flight. He tried orange slices, cinnamon nuts, juicy berries, and more. The flight went on for days and days. Whiskers looked down from the clouds and saw the land changing. The houses looked different. The animals and plants changed too. Finally, the balloon started descending toward the ground. Whiskers peeked over the edge to see grassy plains stretching as far as his little mouse eyes could see. There were acacia trees dotting the plains. When the balloon basket touched down, Whiskers scampered out. "I'm here. I'm in Africa," Whiskers said joyfully. He couldn't believe his journey had brought him all the way to this new and amazing place. The plains smelled of sweet grasses. Strange birds called to each other from the trees. Whiskers followed a little path and discovered a watering hole where great big African animals were drinking. "This is better than I ever dreamed," Whiskers said, watching amazing creatures like elephants, zebras, giraffes, and rhinos. As Whiskers was gazing at the incredible animals, suddenly an enormous lion leapt out from behind an acacia tree. He chased the other animals from the watering hole, roaring loudly. Whiskers' heart pounded as the lion looked right at him and licked his chops. "Run, Whiskers, run," he told himself. Whiskers took off as fast as his little legs could carry him, with the lion bounding after him. Whiskers zigzagged through the grass. He squeezed under rocks and hid in burrows, trying to escape the lion. But the lion kept coming. So Whiskers scrambled up a tall tree, clinging to the branches just out of the lion's reach. The lion growled and snarled up the tree for hours. As the sun started to set, the lion finally gave up and loped away looking for easier prey. Whiskers' heart was still racing, but he was relieved to be out of danger. Still, he was stuck up in the acacia tree with no way down. Then, Whiskers heard a rustling sound. A long green snake was slithering out along the branch toward him. Whiskers gulped. He crawled farther out on the wobbly branch to get away from the snake's flicking tongue. But now he was in danger of falling. He clung to the branch, which bent dangerously low. Whiskers closed his eyes, sure he would fall. Suddenly, he felt himself being swept up into the air. An enormous eagle had grabbed him in its talons. The eagle carried the mouse up into the clouds as Whiskers clung on tightly. The eagle brought Whiskers up to its giant nest at the very top of the lone baobab tree on the plains. When it landed, Whiskers quickly scrambled out of the way of the eagle's snapping beak. The eagle had an eaglet waiting in the nest. "Please don't eat me," Whiskers begged the eagle. "I'm just a small mouse. But I can be helpful to you in other ways." The eagle looked doubtful. So Whiskers scurried around gathering soft grasses and fuzzy feathers to line the eagle's nest. He brought seeds and berries for the eaglet to eat. He became a nest helper, keeping the eagle family comfortable. Since he made himself useful, the eagles allowed Whiskers to stay. Whiskers found he could see the whole of Africa from the lofty baobab tree. He saw spectacular sunrises and sunsets from his new home. The eagles went off hunting during the day while Whiskers cared for the eaglet. He told the eaglet stories about his adventures. At night, storms sometimes rocked the tree, but the nest stayed snug and dry. Whiskers was happy, but he missed his family back home. One day many weeks later, the eaglet had grown into a strong young eagle ready to fly on his own. The mother and father eagles left the nest. "Thank you for helping us," the mother eagle said to Whiskers. The eagles flew off into the sunset. It was time for Whiskers to find a way back home. Whiskers climbed down the twisting baobab tree trunk. He scampered back through the savanna grasslands under the hot sun. He reached the acacia tree by the watering hole but didn't see any balloon baskets nearby. Oh no! Now how will I get home? Worried, he wandered down to the water's edge. He lapped up some cool water and tried to think. Suddenly, Whiskers heard a loud trumpeting noise and flapping ears. A whole herd of beautiful elephants was coming to the watering hole. The great gray elephants splashed in the water and sprayed each other with their trunks. One playful little elephant calf noticed Whiskers. He chased the mouse around trying to grab him with his tiny trunk. "Hey, stop that!" Whiskers yelled. But the elephant calf just thought he was playing. Just then, Whiskers had an idea. He scampered up onto the elephant calf's back. "Lift me up to that acacia tree branch," he told the elephant. The elephant calf stretched up his trunk obligingly. Whiskers grabbed the branch and climbed onto it, just out of reach. "Thank you," he called down to the elephant. Next he tried asking a tall giraffe to lift him up into the highest branches with her long neck. From this height, Whiskers looked all around until he spied another hot air balloon off in the distance. He waved and called loudly until the giraffe wandered under the balloon's path. As the balloon floated by, Whiskers took a flying leap into the basket. He had found his ride home. The balloon rose into the clouds and carried Whiskers halfway around the world back to his little mouse hole. He was thrilled to be home again with his family. But he didn't want to forget his amazing African adventure. Whiskers told his children and grandchildren for many years about his terrific journey. And whenever he told the story, he'd say, "Oh, remember kids, if you want to go on a fantastic adventure, never stop believing in the possible, and your dreams will lift you higher than any hot air balloon."